Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. So this meeting will be back on Monday. I just moved it this week since pretty much everybody was out. So I'm not sure if Robert's going to be able to make it out. He was the only person who did have a clash. Is he on the call?
Yep, he just joined.
Cool. Thanks for joining, Robert. I was saying you were the only person who had a clash on your calendar, so I wasn't sure if you'd make it. But awesome. So let's kick things off. So today, I wrote this on Monday and I realized I'm giving you like super tons of notice if you don't know this already. Today, we have an AMA about releases. There's nothing in the agenda yet, but if you're available, please come along and we can chat release stuff. Cool. Alessio.
Thank you, Amy. So, discussion point. I just wanted to remark that there's no need to set ignore production checks variable in release tools, because basically we can bypass this with the chatops command, and it's documented at the link. But it also there are a couple of effects if we set this manually. The first one, which is the most important, is that if we forget to remove it, like it happened last week, basically, maybe as a release manager, we may think that the current situation is okay to deploy and we set the variable, but then another incident may be triggered or another situation may arise and the old override will still be there. So it's better that every deploy fails and that we have to manually check why it failed and state why we are overriding it instead of just blanking out all the error because we check it once and maybe situation may change in the rest of the day. So that's just an heads up. The other one is that we had a test failure, but this is a development problem because test also runs in ops, and because the check was set in ops, expectation was failing because, yeah, that's a detail. Okay. If nobody has something to say about this, I can go to the next point.
One comment. So if you do the chatops command, you're going to be initiating a new deploy via chatops. And it means you would also need to specify a single environment, which is a bit different, right? You're not going to have the chained environments. You could probably fix this
but
in chatops. We should probably have an issue for that.
Yeah, but my point is these things can only block a production deployment. So it's the last step of the pipeline. So yes, the documentation doesn't state that we should, I think in the example, there's no -- production. So maybe we can make the example clear. But the point is that so far we have nothing post-production, right? So it's just the last step.
Yeah, that sounds good. Maybe we could even output the workaround the chatops command in the check failure or something so that you
that'd be good, because I think right now it's just to set the variable. So that's probably what I did.
Yeah, this is a great idea. Yeah.
And this sort of like a general problem we have with setting CI variables and forgetting to unset them. It's happened to me before. We have variables that other variables besides this. I wonder if we should just have like I don't know, a dashboard or a chatops command that kind of gives you a summary of all the variables and what their current or all overrides.
What if we just add a job to remove these types of variables at the end of a production job if they are present in CI?
Yeah, I was thinking that another option would be to just have a pre-check to fail if a variable is set where we don't expect it to be set. Like in the beginning of the deployer pipeline, it could be the first check or something. But anyway, we can make an issue for that. I don't know if we can solve it now.
Yeah, kind of adding on to that, I thought Skarbek was going to have my same idea, but I had an idea last night where for like the skip omnibus roll check, if that job fails and we say set this variable, I wonder if we could just have a manual job kind of sitting next to that one that has that variable set. So if you need it, you run that job with the manual variable, and then we don't set the variable at all in the CI configuration.
I think it'd be neat if we didn't set any variables, but instead we say chatops forcibly run this package through its deploy pipeline, please. and it figures out which pipeline it is, where it's at, and sets whatever variable is necessary and hits the play button potentially. I don't know. That maybe that's thinking too far. Because that
what I don't like about this kind of approach is that variables are shared between other rounds that may happen at the same time, while triggering with
Right, we just need it.
variable parameters is just the things that you trigger. It cannot affect other things.
We need a variable like per pipeline.
Robert, with regard to your idea, like, how would that work though? Because you have one job that would fail, and then you would have another job that would run with the override set and that would pass, but you still have the failing job.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess our CI wouldn't support it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Can CI detect if a job has been rerun? Like if it fails without the check and then we rerun it, it assumes the check doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of hacky things. Maybe we could do over the API. Over the API, we could get like.
You can, the user change most likely, because the first run happens to be triggered by the deployer, and the second one is triggered by the release manager who clicked play. But it's kind of.
I think there needs to be a feature which is like retry with variable set.
Right. Yeah.
That's what we need.
Well, my original problem with that job was that it wasn't outputting the log message until it was fully done. So like you were just sitting there waiting for half an hour for a thing that wouldn't matter. But then now the problem is like you see it immediately. So you just like cancel it, I guess, and then set the variable and then rerun it. It'd be nice if we could set the variable as it was running, like it was constantly polling, but that's not how the CI works.
Yeah, what I normally do is I set the variable, I retry the job, and then I immediately unset it. As soon as
yeah,
the job
I also
starts.
wasn't sure like at what point we could delete it.
You can delete it as soon as the job.
Okay.
Yeah, as soon as the job starts, you can delete it.
Yeah, that would be good to make clear. I'm never sure when I can take it off either. Also, Alessia, I'm going to give you an MR about updating the documentation. As I thought I'd try it out yesterday, and as I proved, I was a bit lost. So that was also kind of confusing because I ended up yesterday with ignore production checks plus needing the skip omnibus, and you have to set them differently. So that's also gets a bit funky.
We need like a global catch-all variable that's like just deploy it, damn it.
Yeah, exactly. I just want this one to go out. Also, I was thinking, kind of related to this, I should write stuff in some stamp, but I was thinking one thing. So I was specifically thinking about the fact we've had this big chat and Yurik's going to come back right before he goes on back onto being a release manager. I wonder, I know we have documentation, but I wonder, is there a good way or of basically just capturing like significant process changes that we make when you're a release manager so that the next release managers can kind of get the highlights? Because I mean, I'm going to assume that nobody reads the full release management documentation at the beginning of every shift, right? So I think we kind of risk as well, like, because we don't rotate that frequently, that we bed something like this in and then next month we need to relearn it, right? I might have a play around with just jotting down some notes, which specifically in this case, thinking of me handing off to Yurik in a few weeks, how we could do more of like a handover thing for release management. Is that something we've done in the past?
No, it's not. We do need like some kind of change log almost.
Yeah, I also agree on this. Also, because if you're doing this with Yorick, when will be so everyone goes in release management every 6 months, more or less. So if we do hand over on one by one basis, basically you still have to close the gap for all the other shifts that you haven't be part of in the meantime. So if you have something written down, even just like, yeah, as Robert said, kind of a change log, a release management change log would be easier to, yeah, catch up with what changed in the meantime.
Wildly distracted. Hang on, is that a new cat, Skarbek? I feel like we should break for critical news.
This cat's name is Cusco. He is a friend of ours who is currently in South Korea. Let's see if I could adjust for white balance. He's currently in South Korea, so we're just watching him for the time being. It's not a foster or anything. He's an older cat, what, 4 or 5 years old? Yeah. He's an adult, and slowly letting him out because he's been a only cat in where he lives, so he does not like the foster kittens or any other cat inside of our house currently. Anyways, continue.
Okay. Should we move to the next item? Okay. So I want to bring back this old discussion point about having the shadow releases process. So it's kind of a complete QA system for release tools, because it happened again. During the security release, we release the wrong thing, right? So this is the problem that we have with release tools, that is interact with too many external systems, and basically all of them are mocked out during regular unit testing. So this issue is about creating a full QA system that runs releases on basically a sub namespace of release tools, where we clone Gisli, workers, everything. And so we do real hand-to-hand testing. We just patch out our project classes so that they are pointing to your fork, and we are just running everything there. It's, I don't know, we still miss dev. There are many unknowns in this process, but at least it's the only option that we have for checking if we are able to produce a real package out of it, and if we are, I don't know, if we are building Docker images or things like that. So up to discussion.
Yeah, I'm not. This is not a reason not to do it, but my only concern with this one was that we would need like a matrix of various tests, because this specific failure was a feature flag plus a security release. So you'd have to do like a normal release with the feature flag, a normal release without the feature flag, security release with the feature flag, and on and on.
I don't know, maybe we can do something like, if you want to flip a feature flag, you have something that helps you to run a QA on the feature flags flip. So to say, take master, I'm not changing anything, just run it with these flags and check if it works. But I don't know. I mean, it's clearly we are blind here, because especially when we talk about security releases or changes in something that is not security release related, but it may affect it, and then we run it 1 month later.
Right. Yeah.
And
is this something that it feels like a reasonably large task, is my sort of first thought. Yeah. Is it something that we think we should prioritize as like the next big thing we tackle, right? So we've got a few things in play at the moment, like security releases and assisted deployments, as well as the Kubernetes stuff. Like, is this something we should pick up as our next big project?
in theory, it's already P2. So it's kind of high priority. It's just that we didn't check the priority. I mean, it was never scheduled. So I don't know.
I feel like I might be missing something. When we would tag these releases for the shadow release, would the tag format look the same as the tag that we use for the actual security release? And if so, doesn't that mean that we'll publish a package with, I mean, like the tag, there's no way we can fork what gets published as a package, right? Would we have a separate package cloud repository and everything for this?
So this is part of the unknowns. So everything that moves outside of the tagging the thing, it's still unknown, because we rely on dev, for instance, for building. So, but
I see.
For instance, dev is outside. We don't control dev directly. We just mirrorings do the magic. So we can stop and say, yeah, this is a fork. We do everything we should do on fork, and then we verify that the fork has the right things in place. For instance, I don't know.
What if we don't need to use forks, but instead, it seems like we have a lot of logic for auto deploy releases and non-auto deploy releases based on a regex of the semantic version, right? What if we create another thing that is not auto deploy that has the same logic, but it's like a tag that won't interfere with regular releases so that we can test it end to end.
So my idea was to also make this part of the pipeline. So it should run on merge requests. So I'm not really happy to run things that have all the production token access in the merge request. Because if you can mess up with everything basically, but we are working on clones. So if you mess up badly and you are targeting the origin, it will not work. It canonical repo will not work because you don't have the right token. So I was more of, this was my train of thought on this idea.
I see.
Does finding some solution to this problem feel like it should be our sort of our next task?
I wonder whether we should just have some more checks in place before, well, I guess by the time you publish, it's too late. But at least for when we tag, having some more checks in place to kind of catch this typical things we've seen so far. You know, for example, making sure that the FOSS code is in sync properly with the non-FOSS code, and also to make sure that the versions of everything are what we think they are.
Yeah, this covered just one aspect of the failure, which is what happened, for instance, during this security release. But what I'm thinking more broadly here is that maybe you are making some change because of the auto DevOps, you're changing something, and this breaks how we, let's say, pick security fix MR. And you don't know, and you don't realize this until the 28th. I don't remember when we started working on the security release, which is what happened in the past when I wrote this issue. Because basically I was release manager and something changed in between. And when it was time to do security release, which is high stress, high pressure moment on the release, basically release was not working. And we had full month of work to change 1 month of changes in release 2 to figure out what broke it and why something changed.
So maybe the sort of the problem is less about the how we solve the problem, but maybe it does make sense for our next project to actually be how can we have more confidence, like ahead of security release or a monthly release, those sorts of scheduled ones, that the release tooling is working. And maybe it is like it's just more checks in place, or maybe it's more of an end-to-end thing or something like that. Okay, well, let's make sure we I'll make sure we pick that up when we complete one of our current projects, so that we can actually make some progress on this. Cool. Cool. Was there anything else anyone wanted to bring up on the recording?